Saturn and Neptune are now both in the sign of Aries, which means we are at the start of a whole new cycle. And this week I read a social media post which made me realize we are at the start of a whole new cycle for humanity when it comes to manifesting. Yes, I know that sounds really big, but this is actually really big. So today I want to talk about something that really stopped me in my tracks. Actually, this morning, I'm recording this because I've been inspired. I was scrolling through social media, as you do, and I stumbled across a post from someone I think I have about 1 degree of separation from. Her name is Sahara Rose. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't think I've ever heard her name said out loud, but I've seen her on Instagram for some time. I think I have about 1 degree of separation from her with multiple people, but I've never met her. But I think she knows quite a few people that I know. Anyway, you may have heard of her, you may not have heard of her. Sahara Rose. I know she's created a beautiful deck of oracle cards. She's quite a big voice in the divine feminine spiritual space. And I would say especially around the ideas of Dharma and divine feminine energy. So let me read out the first half of what she posted. She wrote, "There comes a point on the spiritual path where it's no longer about manifesting the dream house, the soulmate, the $1 million launch, because you realize it was never about the thing. Desire creates a void. Even when you get what you want, it opens the door to the next craving. The dream partner arrives and your wounds come with you. The money comes in, and so too do the fears of losing it. True manifestation isn't about getting, it's about becoming. Becoming the version of you who is safe to receive, stable enough to hold, and embodied enough to sustain the frequency of what you called in." Let me read that again. True manifestation isn't about getting, it's about becoming. Becoming the version of you who is safe to receive. Becoming the version of you who is stable enough to hold and embodied enough to sustain the frequency of what you called in. Now, I don't know Sahara Rose. It sounds to me like she's manifested something which has possibly slipped through her fingers. And if that's the case, I hope she's fine. She seems like an absolutely beautiful person. I just wanted to unpack a little bit of this. This is actually only half of what she posted, and I will get to more of it later in another podcast. But it's got so much amazing information in there. And I'm going to record more about this, but I actually think I'm going to call this podcast about something like, "This is the podcast that showed that humanity is shifting," because it really does. Like, this is next level manifesting information that Sahara Rose is tapping into. Okay, I want to just break down a few things in there, or unpack a few things in there. One thing I wanted to talk about before anything else is that Sahara Rose writes, "Desire creates a void. Even when you get what you want, it opens the door to the next craving." Now, this is something that if you are an experienced or veteran student of manifesting, you will know about, because it's something that was taught by really the first people, I think, of our generation, if I can say that rather broadly, because I know there are people of all ages who listen to this, but, you know, of our timeline, the first people who really started to crack open the whole manifesting conundrum were Jerry and Esther Hicks, in the form of Abraham Hicks. Back in the day, I would say must have been around about 20 years ago now, maybe around 2005, something like that, 2006, 2007. They had a book called The Law of Attraction. They were actually two of the teachers in the manifesting phenomenon, really. It was just a video that was marketed so incredibly well, but also because the world was so ready for it, called The Secret, which I still to this day have never seen. In a way because I never wanted to be influenced by it, but maybe it's time for me to watch it. I don't know. But anyway, Jerry and Esther Hicks came out of that. They actually taught, or they claimed to have sort of been the teachers of, I think her name is Rhonda Byrne, who actually made The Secret, and I think they felt a bit miffed that she had taken their teachings and run with them a little bit. But anyway, they certainly have also not been slouches in the manifesting space. They taught so much about manifesting. And one of the things they always taught was that as soon as you manifest one desire, another desire comes along. So that's what Sahara Rose is talking about here. And I just want to say, I actually don't think that's a bad thing. Because I grew up with Abraham Hicks, I feel like they always taught, you'll manifest one thing and then just because human nature is, you'll always want another thing. Now, this does, of course, raise the question of, when are we ever going to be happy? How much money is enough money? How much love is enough love? How much money is it going to take to make you happy? How much love is it going to take to make you happy? What's it going to take to make you happy? Are you ever going to be happy? And so what Sahara Rose talks about in some of her podcasts that I've listened to is, eventually we need to stop wanting more stuff and we need to just be happy with who we are. And I couldn't agree more with that. But I do also think, with all due respect to Sahara Rose, who honestly seems like the most amazing woman, and I do hope I meet her one day, and I would say this to her if we were to meet, I feel like this is a message that could only come from someone who's already got quite a bit of what she wanted, who's already managed to manifest a lot of amazing stuff. And if you've seen Sahara Rose online, you'll know what I mean. She's absolutely stunning to look at. I mean, she's like, a model, a beauty, a goddess. She has a massive platform. I'm not sure how many followers, but I would guess it's in the hundreds of thousands or even millions. That's just a guess. I probably should have looked that up before I came on here to say this. But, she's definitely succeeding. I think she's got a book out. She's got oracle cards out. She seems to have lots of very high vibe, well-connected friends. She's got the lifestyle. She's got the clothes. She's got the shoes, Now, great, good on her. I couldn't be happier for her. And in many ways, that's me as well. I mean, I don't actually have her youth because she looks much, much younger than me. And my picture of Sahara Rose from the past few years is seeing her dressed up in sort of, like kind of a Rio de Janeiro carnival outfit with a big headdress on her head and lots of exposed skin and looking absolutely incredible, which is not me. But, I can't complain about my life either. My life, thank God, is amazing. So there's all that, and they're saying, okay, so, if we unpack it again, there comes a point on the spiritual path where it's no longer about manifesting the dream house, the soulmate, the $1 million launch, because probably she's done it, But if you're listening to this, on your half-broken phone from a flat, that you can barely afford to live in, maybe stuck in a job you hate, surrounded by clutter or even chaos in your life, then, I feel like this message could hit a little bit differently. You might think, well, that's easy for you to say, Sahara Rose, from your, LA pad with your $1 million launch. And yet, there is actually truth in what she's saying. Very, very, very deep truth, okay? Because once you've manifested the thing, the car, the partner, the holiday, the launch, what are you left with? You are actually left with you. You are left with your energy. How is your energy? How does your energy feel to you? That's what you're left with. You're left with your fears that you haven't worked through. You're left with your capacity to hold and keep and enjoy what you ask for. And, one thing that really comes to me as I talk about this is about my trips to India that I've been taking on and off for about 20 years now. And you'd be amazed at some of the people that go to the ashram in India where I go. Last time I was there at the same time as literally a quite famous member of the royal family of England. Okay, I won't say who, obviously, but someone who has been, in the papers their whole life and who's very high up in the royal family. And, there's an example of someone who's probably got palaces and castles and goodness knows what else. And what are they left with? They're left with themselves, and they're left to work on themselves. So on the one hand, I would say, yes, it is a place of privilege to be able to say, actually, I don't need all that stuff. I've had all that stuff. I'm done with manifesting all that stuff. Because once you've manifested it, you're comfortable. And once you're comfortable, then, and I think sometimes only then, can you start to really think about what else do you want to manifest? Because if we're not comfortable, we're going to be in survival mode. And if you think about the chakras and what's above your root chakra, above your red chakra comes your orange chakra, which is all about food and sex, because we need both of those. And then above that, above the navel, is the yellow chakra, the solar plexus chakra, which is all about power. So we're going sort of from survival to food and sex, which are needed for survival in many ways, especially food, but also a sort of like a bit of sex, especially, is a bit of gravy on top of survival. And then on top of that, we go to the yellow chakra, which is all about stepping into your power. And then once you've kind of gone through those three chakras, that's when we then sort of go through this invisible line that leads to the heart chakra. And on it goes up to the divine. So, it's like we have to go from one thing to the next. And honestly, I have often thought, in fact, I even was asked by Hay House at one point to write a book about manifesting, because obviously that's what I do a lot of with Moonology. But I never wanted to write it because I didn't feel that the world was really at the stage, or maybe even I was at the stage yet, where I felt that I could write about manifesting in a way that went beyond here's how to manifest a car, or here's how to manifest, if you're in a bed sit, here's how to manifest a 1-bedroom flat. But now that I've seen this post from Sahara Rose, this life-changing post, I feel like, I think the world is now ready for next level manifesting. Which is not to say that we don't need to do the basics of manifesting, because we do need to show people how powerful they are and how to get from, the red chakra to the orange chakra to the yellow chakra. And that's definitely a thing. But once we get past it, once we've manifested the car, the partner, the holiday, the launch, that's when it's time for us to really step up. And I think on the one hand, it's time for us to start teaching people how to manifest, those first few steps. If you know how to do it, if you've done it, teach others how to do it. And then for yourself to manifest on the next level. So this, as far as I'm concerned, is the next chapter in the manifesting conversation. And you might say, okay, but aren't you the Mainly Moonology podcast? Yes, I am. But guess what? We have just had a massive energy shift astrologically, okay? It's a really, really big deal, okay? We are at the start of literally, like astrologers don't always agree on everything, but I think pretty much every astrologer in the world worth anything would agree that we are in a new astrological cycle. Two of the biggest planets in the sky right now, I've been talking about it for a few weeks on the podcast, so you probably already know, but two of the biggest planets in the sky right now, Saturn and Neptune, have changed signs, and they are both in the sign of Aries, which is not just another sign, it's the first sign of the zodiac, okay? Now, they are also, this is something that you won't like, there's a book, if you're starting astrology, there's a book you should get called Bill's Astrology Dictionary or something like that. Bill's, Bills. I'm not sure, I can't remember who wrote it, but if you Look on Amazon or wherever, you'll find it. And it basically is a fairly infallible book that basically tells you which sign or house or planet rules what. Now, I'm pretty sure that when Bills wrote that book, nobody was talking about manifesting, and I'm pretty sure manifesting is not in there, okay? Just because I don't think he would have thought to include that. And in fact, I'm 99% sure, and short of pausing this and running up to my office and trying to find the book, I can tell you I'm 99.9% sure it's not in there, because it wasn't a thing when he wrote this book. But for my money, and let me go on the record here, Saturn and Neptune are the manifesting planets, and you kind of need both of them, because Neptune brings the dreams and the vision, and Saturn brings the hard work, the form and structure that makes things real. And right now they've both been in the sign of Pisces for a very long time, which has really coincided with this whole growth sector for manifesting, as people have started to realize that we are creating our own reality. Okay, but now it's getting bigger than that. People are starting to realize, okay, it's not just about, I can manifest a new Mercedes. It's, I am literally creating my life. That's what I think people are starting to realize, okay? So they've been in Pisces, which you could say is the most magical, mystical sign, but also can be the sign of illusion and a sign of confusion. But here is the plot twist. They are now in the sign of Aries. As of last week, both are now in the sign of Aries. So they've moved from, one of my favorite signs, don't get me wrong, floaty, dreamy Pisces, into Aries, which is a fierce action sign. It's ruled by Mars. It's on fire. It's going for it. So we're kind of moving from ether, the Neptunian Piscean ether, because Neptune rules Pisces and Pisces rules Neptune, whichever way you want to look at it. So we're moving from the Neptunian Piscean ether to Aries, which is, it's a fire sign, but it's still about embodiment. It's about going for it. It's about deciding what you want and chasing it. It's from wishing to becoming. And I think when they move into Taurus, it's going to be even more about embodiment. Okay, but that's not going to happen for a long time. So also, even more significantly, during this cycle of Saturn and Neptune both being in Aries, they are going to actually conjoin. They will come together at the same degree of the zodiac in 2026, next year. This hasn't happened for over 150 years. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shift. And it really is a new cycle of manifestation, not just for me or for you, but for humanity. And in some ways, it's bringing us full circle, Like I said, for years and years and years, I've toyed with the idea of writing a book about manifesting. Hay House asked me to write a book about moonology manifesting, but I wasn't ready. I actually spoke to Sonia Choquette about it once in Paris when we were having dinner, and I said, I'm just not ready because I don't want to teach people this is how you manifest a new car. I feel like it has to go beyond that. But I feel like the conversation around manifesting hadn't progressed that far yet. And in fact, my own understanding and thoughts hadn't either. And it's now with this post from Sahara Rose that I'm seeing, we are there now. So while we still want to do all the base chakra stuff, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus chakra, before we get to the heart chakra and so on, from survival to survival with trimmings to power, we still want to teach that. If you've mastered it, teach it. And if you're still not there, you can learn it. Okay. But I think we're ready for something deeper, something that's just truer. Something that explains how manifesting is not just about, wish lists and vision boards, though I do love a wish list and a vision board. I honestly think they work. I'll tell you what else I think really works is those checks from the universe. They really work. But also about who you become in the process. I've held back until now. Maybe the world wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't ready. But now I honestly think we are. So we're going to be doing more and more of this. I said at the start of the year to my members in my Mainly Moonology membership that this year is going to be a lot about manifesting, and this is just the start of it. By the time you hear this, we'll have just done a Mainly Moonology membership manifesting Saturn in Aries workshop, which if you're already a member, shout out to you. Hop into the portal, watch it, because it's just come out. And if you're not a member yet and you'd like to join, mainlymoonologymembership.com. It's fairly well priced, I would say, and you get a lot of good value. Because, manifesting is no longer just about calling something in. It's about creating the version of you who can not just call something in, but also live in that version. Okay? Becoming someone who can receive, hold, and expand your dreams. So, where to from here, I hear you ask. Here's what I suggest. Start asking not just what you want to manifest, but who you need to become to live that, okay? Start asking not just what you want to manifest, but who you need to become to live that, right? And, if you're listening to this and thinking, she sounds like she's wrapping up, where's the astrology? I'm telling you, this is the astrology, okay? This is the astrology. Ask, how can I feel safe receiving this? How can I support myself emotionally, spiritually, practically? Start making some lists. Okay, so use this shift that's happening as Saturn and Neptune begin their transit through Aries, although they are going to flip back. Saturn's going to flip back into Pisces yet, but start to embody your next level. Okay, it's not just about dreaming. It never was. I've always said it. It's about the woo-woo and the work. It's about doing. It's about aligning your energy so that the universe has something solid to meet you with. Okay? The woo-woo and the work. And remember, manifestation is sacred, okay? It's not superficial, it's not silly. It's the way we co-create with the cosmos. It's the way we co-create with the divine. So let's do it consciously. Let's manifest ourselves with a capital S. Okay? So until next time, stay aligned, stay magical, and keep looking up. Thank you so much for listening to this week's Mainly Moonology podcast. My aim, as I said, is to help you learn how to create your dream life. I want to give a shout out to all my members, all my Mainly Moonology members. Thank you so much for investing in me and supporting in me as I try to invest in you and support you. And if you're not already a member and you think you'd quite like to find out what it's all about, just go to mainlymoonologymembership.com. Lots of love. Speak to you next week.